Thank you all for joining us here this afternoon. Uh, as you know, we are required by the Constitution to issue our executive budget. The executive budget truly is the primary public policy document that really provides the vehicle for us to change the trajectory of the state so that our children can choose to call Hawaii home. It invests in the basic needs of our residents, a quality education, affordable housing, primary health care, and the essential social services safety net that really keeps our community working. It invests heavily in education as we begin the transformation of our public schools to be future focused. We continue our efforts in housing and homelessness because we do need to take care of those who are less fortunate. And finally, it makes our investment to a sustainable Hawaii, ensuring that we can continue to protect our natural resources that are so vital to many of us in the community. With this document, I look forward to working with the legislature as we collaborate to shape the budget moving forward. This budget is a balancing act. It truly balances the current needs in our community with investments for the future that is so critical to moving us forward. The operating budget for FY18 is about $14.2 billion from all revenue sources, which reflects a modest 4% increase. FY19 funding is 14.377 billion from all sources, which is about 5% increase over the current fiscal year. On the capital improvement side, the budget reflects a total $3 billion investment in critical infrastructure that is so important to our community. That's $2.37 billion in the first year and $780 million in the second year. I just would want to note that, as you are aware, this past year, our bond rating agencies from two of the major rating agencies was increased to the highest bond rating in the history of the state of Hawaii. And it really does allow us to do more. It gives us the opportunity to make these investments that I think are so important at reduced costs for our constituents. A couple things that I would want to highlight in the budget. You know, it does begin with investing in our future, the education of our community. It is a top priority of this administration. We know that the quality of our education drives the quality of our economy. We do know as we make improvements in the learning of our children, we will have more economic choices in the future. As you know, this past summer, for the first time in more than a decade, we had a summit to talk about education and the future of education. We had more than 1,000 people who came to talk with us about their ideas about how to improve public education in the state of Hawaii. We followed that with more than 20 community meetings on each island, including Lanai and Molokai, to really talk about what improvements were required, what things worked, what things didn't work so well. In total, more than 3,000 individuals have participated in the crafting of the blueprint for public education moving forward. We are very close to finalizing that document, but it really provides a roadmap to transform our public schools into a future-focused system, really preparing our children to compete and excel in the 21st century. This budget represents our investment in that future. It includes the largest investment in instruction at the school level ever for our public school system. $28 million increased in the weighted student formula each year, and those are the funds that make it directly to the schools. We also, in response to suggestions made from the governor's team, is initiating a new innovation grant program. What we had heard over and over as we traveled to community meetings is that the schools were tired of unfunded mandates and direction from the Board of Education and the Department of Education, and look forward to the opportunity to be able to do what they believe is most important for our students. This new innovation fund is really an effort to allow the Board of Education to fund those priority areas that they believe will move our school system forward. We are also making an investment in this budget to the early college. More than $9 million is being invested. I truly believe that early college is a competitive advantage for our public school system. It gives us the opportunity to keep the best and brightest in the public school system. Can you imagine our students, our high school students, being able to earn not only high school credits, but college credits at the same time? I truly believe that we should make this opportunity available at all public schools. We continue to make significant investments in our public school facilities. No one is more frustrated than I am at the pace of implementation of our efforts to cool the schools, but we will continue, and this budget continues our investment to providing a quality environment for our children to learn. Budget includes $61 million in additional funds for cooling additional classrooms. In addition, it includes $800 million in CIP funds for investments in public schools. $373 million of that is new schools and classrooms to deal with enrollment increases. $150 million to the University of Hawaii for their facilities, $10 million to the public library system. And it includes $60.5 million to provide equity in the older schools so that they can continue to modernize the school facilities for 21st century needs. This budget also continues our efforts to reduce homelessness and provide more housing, affordable housing for our residents. Last year, as you know, the legislature had appropriated $12 million to help in combating homelessness. This budget reflects $20.9 million in each fiscal year to increase our efforts to combat homelessness. Again, we are taking the lessons learned over the last year. We are focused on collaboration and working with our county and federal partners to look at opportunities to maximize the investment and resources of each to combat homelessness. As you are aware, over the last 12 months, we've touched more than 5,000 lives in homelessness. We've prevented more than 3,000 people who are on the edge of homelessness and helped them to stay in their homes so that they wouldn't fall out into homelessness. And I think more importantly, we place more than 3,200 individuals into permanent supportive housing. And this budget seeks to continue the work that we started until we can end homelessness. We are also committed in this budget to providing affordable housing for our communities. We have changed the way that we view the private sector, and we really embrace them as partners. We know that the state or county government cannot provide all of the housing that our communities need. It really is about partnership, about working with the private sector to see how we can build more affordable homes for our communities. This budget invests $123.4 million in programs to promote new housing starts. It includes a $50 million deposit into the dwelling unit revolving fund to invest in critical infrastructure, and $50 million into the rental housing revolving fund so that we can initiate more affordable rental projects in this community. It also includes $15 million for a mixed-use affordable rental project at the Alder Street address, and $8.4 million for low-income housing tax credits. We also are investing $59 million into our public housing. The $59 million is really about renovating and making improvements into existing public housing facilities so that we can continue to provide housing for those who can least afford it. The budget also moves us further in our efforts for a sustainable Hawaii. As you are aware, at the World Conservation Congress of the IUCN this past summer, we had announced our Sustainable Hawaii initiative, our commitment to doing our part to reduce the carbon footprint and provide planning to avoid rising sea levels and climate change. This budget moves us forward in all of these areas. It really is about how we protect our natural resources, our watersheds, our oceans, our streams. At the same time, our commitment to double local food production by the year 2020. This budget includes more than $30 million increase in agriculture and the Department of Land and Natural Resources, including $5 million invested in the agricultural loan revolving fund so that we can help those who want to become farmers to understand the challenges of growing more of the food that we intend to eat. It includes $2.5 million for water infrastructure. It includes $2 million to help support expansion of the livestock industry, continues the program that we had initiated a couple of years ago. It also includes $18 million to protect what our residents care about the most, the natural resources, the watersheds, oceans that are so important, fighting against invasive species. And this budget includes $3.5 million specifically for rapid ohia death. As we know, this disease threatens the most important watershed forest trees in our state, and we need to make progress in how best to manage and stop the spread of this disease. It also includes $31 million of CIP funds for sustainable Hawaii initiatives. This includes $7.5 million for watershed protection, $7 million for improvements in the Waihole water system so that we can provide water for our farmers, $3.7 million for the Waimanalo irrigation system, $8 million for the Kunia Agricultural Park, and $12 million to repair flood damage and reconstruction at Iao Valley Park on Maui. As we know, last week I was able to visit the HCNS facilities on Maui for the last harvest. This truly marks the end of the big agriculture industry in Hawaii, an industry that spanned hundreds of years. As you know, Hawaii led the world in sugar and pineapple for many years, and it didn't happen by accident. It happened by hard work, research and development that allowed Hawaii to become the lowest cost producer of sugar and pineapple in the world. I think the challenge for us at this point in time We moved from agriculture to the hospitality industry around the 1950s or just about statehood. And our functional plans had mapped a course to move from agriculture to the hospitality industry. And 60 years later, the hospitality industry is the number one industry in our economy, creating more than 200,000 jobs. We are at the end of the fifth record year in terms of visitor arrivals and visitor spending. Clearly, we have been thoughtful and successful in migrating from agriculture to the hospitality industry. I think the challenge and question before us is what's next? What will be the economic driver of the future of Hawaii? I do believe, and we make an strategic investment in the innovation economy because that is where the jobs of the future will come. It starts with innovation in the public schools, and I talked about the public school innovation program. It includes a $10 million investment in the Hawaii Strategic Development Corporation to provide risk funds and investment equity for the entrepreneurs and new discoveries that are so important to drive an innovation economy. It includes $5 million a year to the University of Hawaii Cancer Center. The University of Hawaii Cancer Center has the opportunity to lead in cancer research. And as you are aware, last year we had a summit on the moonshot and what should Hawaii's role be. Hawaii has a strategic advantage in cancer research because of our diversity. And we believe that this investment in the Cancer Center will help us in our efforts to become more prominent in cancer research. And I think as important, investments in Cancer Center will allow and give our residents access to the leading edge research that can provide the next cure of cancer. The clinical trials available to the Cancer Center will allow our residents to benefit from that leading edge research. And we also, this budget includes $3.5 million a year to support the University of Hawaii's research and innovation program. If you look at economic development and innovation and entrepreneurship around the country as it's driven by this technology and information age, it is always anchored by strong universities. And we intend, and this budget intends to make that investment. Just a couple other items that I just want to highlight and point out in this budget. I guess this is kind of a number of things that are continuation from efforts initiated in the past. $18.8 million to continue tax system modernization. You know, to date, we have stopped more than $33 million in fraud. I do believe that the tax system modernization is fundamentally important to ensure that people pay their fair share of taxes already owed. It includes $9.2 million to convert our old payroll system to a state-of-the-art system. That project is already in progress. We do know that making these strategic investments in core financial systems are very important to allow us to do more with less. Couple things, $1.3 million to vector control. As we know, the Zika outbreak in South America and its appearance as an established disease in Florida really reminds us about making smart investments in core infrastructure services here in Hawaii to prevent mosquito-borne diseases from ever getting established. And I think more importantly, allowing us to have the capacity to respond. This $1.3 million investment in vector control allows us to manage and continue to work to eliminate mosquitoes. We also include 9 million for a women's correctional center, consolidated housing. This does help us with Oahu Community Correctional Facility. It allows us this investment in a women's correctional facility will help relieve overcrowding at OCCC. A couple other highlights. This budget includes 50 million for a permanent international federal inspection station at Kona Airport. As you know, the first flight from Haneda to Kona will occur later on this week. It's a significant increase in activity in the west side of the Big Island, and we will continue to move forward with establishing a permanent federal inspection station. Overall, we make significant investments in airports, 250 million for Honolulu International Airport, 40 million additional to Kahului Airport. In the harbors, it includes 16.3 million for commercial harbors statewide, and over 312 million over 2 years in the highway fund. This includes 89 million for extension of the Daniel K. Inouye Highway, H1 airport viaduct improvements, 42 million each year over the 2 fiscal years, and a commitment of more than 180 million to bridges and other improvements statewide. You know, the budget really does align the values and priorities of this administration and really takes it to the next step, which is really action and execution. We continue to be focused on the state's fiscal stability. So this budget represents a balancing of the interests to spend on critical needs now and managing investments for future improvements in our economy. You know, we continue to work toward a better and brighter future for all the residents of the state of Hawaii. We have learned over the last 2 years, and we have been engaged in actively listening to the needs and concerns of our community, working with partners at every opportunity, and more importantly, being smart about innovating to find new ways of doing difficult things. And so with that, I'm open to any questions that you might have. Our financial, there's no raises in the budget, but our financial plan does include funds for fair compensation for all public employees. As you know, all 14 units are up for their contracts expired at the end of this fiscal year. You know, we are working to get fair settlements with all of the units.
Do you expect, though, that teachers in particular, given your emphasis of education, might do well?
Well, I mean, I think that clearly this budget on the operating side invests in our schools. And teachers all across the state have talked about wanting to be able to provide better services for our students. And certainly it does get reflected in the budget that's being submitted. As I said, we will continue to work to arrive at fair compensation for all of the public employees.
The governor, 60 cents out of every dollar is for personnel costs, fixed costs in the state. So that doesn't leave you much wiggle room in terms of trying to spend it.
Well, I think and that's why we will continue to seek to find balance. You know, the budget didn't expand for all the funds available. It really was about identifying those strategic investments that are important. And as I said, we are committed to fair wage increases for all of our public servants.
Where there are increases in your budget, where did you find the money then?
I think it's a combination of a couple things. Obviously, the economy is doing better. You know, the fifth record year in a row really does help us have the funds that we need to make investments in our community, and I think fairly make investments in our employees.
But conveyance taxes, Governor, I mean, isn't that coming in droves now that we have all this real estate sales?
You know, I think that we've made a significant investment in this budget in affordable housing, and that is driven by conveyance taxes. I do think that in general, we have seen an increase in revenues. But I also would want to remind people that the council had projected a 5.5% increase over last year in general fund revenues. And the year-to-date figure through November, so the first 5 months of the year, is less than 1% increase. So we definitely are monitoring and being aware of what the revenue picture looks like in determining what would be appropriate to submit in this budget.
What are you basing it on? What's the revenue estimate you're basing it on? Is it based on what the council revenues came up with?
We had initiated a policy to establish targets for the general fund balance as well as balances in all special funds. And so we are committed to doing that. As you know, our ratings increase was a result of our fiscal policies. And as I said, so we didn't take all the money and spend it down to the last dollar. This budget doesn't identify that spending. It really is about making investments, being aware that we want to provide for fair wage increases, but most importantly, moving our state forward in these critical areas of education, protecting the environment, dealing with homelessness and housing.
So are there any tax increases assumed in this spending plan?
This spending plan does not include any tax increases.
No gasoline tax?
It's based on the existing taxes. You know, we continue, as you know, we are continuing to work with the counties and others in the transportation area with the rail, the needs of the rail system, as well as the funding needs of the transportation system.
The 20 million in addition homelessness funding, is that on top of what was the usual spending? I don't know what the total is.
No, that is right. So it's 8 million more than the previous.
Governor, you talked about the need for spending on all these various issues. Why put money aside for the rainy day fund as well, save money instead of spending more?
This budget actually does include additional deposits into the reserves. You know, I think sound fiscal policy means that we get to a point where our reserves allows us to temper a downturn in the economy. As you may recall, during the Great Recession, we had to cut more than $2 billion out of the operating budget, and that definitely was a scramble. So part of our fiscal policy is to ensure that we have sufficient reserves so that if there is a downturn in the economy, we wouldn't have to look at drastic cuts in programs or reductions in salaries.
So how much extra would you put in the rainy day fund? How much are you proposing?
I can get that number. The law currently deposits automatically 10% of the carryover balance. Wes, you wanna?
So far,
Come forward.
Nice try.
Excuse me, Governor. So far with the budget reserve policies that we have in place, about 600 million should be, that's what we're targeting. Currently, it's over 300 million.
So additional for FY 18, it mentions in the narrative that there'll be some extra money going in this year.
Well, that's because of if you have two preceding years in which you have 5% of the general revenue fund growth, you're required to put that excess above into the rainy day fund. And so that's about 50 million or so, I believe, extra.
And Governor, you mentioned that there was some additional costs with Maui Hospital, so you're supplementing, I guess, what you've already put up. How much additional money would that be? And how come?
Well, it's we definitely there are some transition costs. The termination bonuses that was passed by the legislature will be going back and seeking funding for that. Other than that, it really is a transition from the state running to Kaiser running it. So it actually doesn't increase, it's actually a decrease because the law actually caps the subsidy. And over the next 6 years, that subsidy will be reduced.
So the payouts that the legislature approved, you folks will actually be implementing that law as written, is that right?
It's not as written. We've negotiated the supplemental agreement that we've negotiated with the UPW and HGA provides an implementation of that law that we believe does not violate the Internal Revenue Code. So it's stepped. We are focused initially on the separation bonuses that is being provided. We've deferred any action on any enhanced retirement because we did not want to jeopardize the retirement system.
Is there a cost associated with that you might be able to?
We can get you that number. I mean, I don't have it right now, but there is a cost to the separation bonuses and the transition activities.
Governor, the new president-elect who run electoral college within the last hour or so, does your administration in any way take into concern the uncertainty of a new administration, particularly a Republican-controlled House and Senate, given Hawaii's close ties to the federal government and so forth? Did you think about Donald Trump in crafting it?
We definitely, all of the cabinet members have been alerted to reach out to their federal counterparts. We have been working through what the potential impacts might be. I do believe that this gives us an opportunity to lead as states. In my conversations with other governors, I think that we are hoping that we can lead the way in a couple of different areas. For example, I do know that the Affordable Care Act is top issue across the country, but our Hawaii prepaid health care law, which we've had for more than 40 years, really provides the broadest health care coverage and access to all of our people and has for a number of years. One of the primary reasons that Hawaii is the healthiest state in the country is because of Hawaii's prepaid healthcare law. So, we are looking at each of the program areas and trying to anticipate what the impact might be. I do believe that it's premature to take a drastic reaction to the change in administration, but we are definitely doing our homework to identify what would be at risk and what priority areas we would want to continue to fund if, in fact, there was a significant change in federal funding.
Governor, just for clarification, we talked about the education budget being the highest ever. Does the public school education expenses, does that come at the expense of UH expenses, or is that also up as well?
This budget does reflect an increase in the university as well. As I said, we are supporting the Cancer Center, we're supporting innovation. There's about another $10 million or so that we are investing to support the university's priorities in really ensuring that all of our communities have access to higher education. As we know, our economy, the innovation economy is definitely driven by higher skilled workers, and we want to make sure that we are making investments in our public schools and our public university in a way to ensure that our residents have access to education.
Governor, also with local education, can you elaborate more on the heat abatement improvements? Is that at just a few schools, all schools, and also the enrollment capacity?
Well, this this budget reflects 30 million, more than 30 million in each year. And again, we do have a prioritized list of schools, and we'll be working to get further down that list. Sorry, your second question?
About the enrollment capacity, does that mean
Yes.
entire new schools or just buildings at certain schools?
Of the funds provided, 200, more than 260 million is for new schools. And the rest of that is in additional classrooms to schools that are bursting at the seams.
Which schools are you supporting?
We can provide a list of the schools in the details. I'd have to go. I don't want to guess. I know that we've been working through those lists quite extensively. So,
And when you talk about the condition of public schools, can you elaborate more on that too, what that could mean, what we'll be seeing changed over there?
well, we do know, and the air conditioning is one of those areas that the environment of our schools makes a difference for student learning. And so we are working off the prioritized list, trying to hit those schools that are the hottest and making investments, not only in air conditioning, but also energy efficiency, because we do know if we do those investments concurrently, then it reduces the need for other electrical upgrades and other costly infrastructure investments.
I wanted to straight though, I had not heard, and maybe I missed the release of the press event, that you have now reached agreement with the unions about the conversion of Maui Hospital. You're done with that?
Well, we have completed supplemental agreements with both HGA and UPW that allows us to move forward with that transition. At this point in time, Kaiser is working through the specific detailed transition activities. So, as you know, they are making an investment in the employees, trying to provide training in new systems, that they are putting in a new electronic health record system and other systems that they believe are critical to allow them to provide more services for the people of Maui at a reduced subsidy from the state of Hawaii. So yes, those supplemental agreements allow us to do the transition ahead of the July 1st of 2017. It really is about Kaiser working through the logistics of when they would want to bring people, when they would want to complete training to allow for a smooth transition.
There's an issue over and over again about facilities funding for charter schools. Does this budget make any kind of a dent in that issue? There's been a lot of complaints about that.
Well, I think funding for charter school facilities remains a challenge. That we do reflect some funds. We are providing additional operating funds. All of those programs that we talked about for public schools in general would be available to charters as well. I think the challenge with charter schools is really about how many students do you prepare for, and what is the longevity of the charter school. And so that's been the challenge. It's really about trying to find the balance of how do you provide facility support for a school of choice that the charter schools are. How reliable are their projections for the number of students that they'll have, and what the facility needs are. So there's no explicit solution, long-term solution to the facility challenge for charters in this budget.
In the funding at the moment, then, the status quo?
Right. Yeah. As you know, we have we've funded facilities for charters in the past through grants and aids, and there are a couple of grants that are currently going in process right now. We are working toward what would be a better way to provide for facilities for charter schools moving forward.
This all ends up in the money committees eventually, and it's expected there's gonna be a big brouhaha over the rail funding. Have you already, and the mayor, needs, the FTA wants early reassurance about that funding level. What are you gonna take to the legislature in that respect?
Well, we continue to work. Right now, we are having conversations about what makes the most sense. You know, as I had said in the past, we are looking for the challenges and needs of the highway fund. We do know that the cost of maintaining and expanding the highways is increasing, and the available funds is essentially static. So we continue to look at that and have conversations and work with the legislature and others about what would be the most appropriate way to fund that. And again, we are looking at the transit system and working to determine what would be the best way to fund the transit system.
I'm not sure how that connects to the highway fund.
Well, I mean, it's as what we've heard is that there is concern about the cost of living. You know, we made a proposal last year to increase the weight tax, the gasoline tax, and the registration fees, and you know, the legislature had expressed concern about doing those things. You know, it really is, and you've written stories about the fact that based on current funding, we do not have sufficient funds in the highway fund to initiate new expansion projects. And all of our efforts would be looking at how to make existing infrastructure, repair and maintain it, to fix the potholes, but really focus on how to make existing infrastructure more effective. So if there needs to be a conversation about new highways, then there needs to be a conversation about how we fund them.
You've been talking about what areas get more funding, whether it's education or homeless. What areas have seen a decrease in the budget? You mentioned the highway fund or transportation. I don't know if that is one of them or if that, what area.
There really isn't any specific area that has taken a decrease in funds. You know, we, for example, in terms of debt service, we continually evaluate reissuing or repurchasing bonds in order to save money and reduce costs. So the budget in total has a lot of these pluses and minuses. I think overall every department is receiving additional funds. The biggest increases are in those entitlement kinds of areas: pension, health fund, debt service to some extent. And that's a big portion of the budget. The rest of the operating budget is you know, we're looking at making investments in the strategic areas.
Is that it? Anybody? Okay, thanks so much.
Yep, thank you.
Have a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.